Hi, everyone. Welcome to a really, really special episode of Weekly Hope. My name's Kirsten Hagland, and if you watch our regular episodes of Weekly Hope, you know me. You also see that I'm here with two incredible women and not my official co-host, who is Elsa, my dog. I have a toy poodle who usually hosts episodes of Weekly Hope with me. She's not here, but I have some really, really wonderful people here to introduce you with and who are going to have a fabulous conversation with here today. So thanks for joining us on this Sunday afternoon as well. I know it's the weekend and I hope you're doing something restful, enjoyable, but I really wanted to touch base with you over the weekend. The day before, we have this really incredible event planned at Texas Christian University here in Fort Worth tomorrow. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but mostly want to highlight the work of these incredible women on campus. Just to give you a little inside information. So a couple months ago, Alex actually reached out to me and they were looking to do this event to raise awareness about eating disorders, promote positive body image, that whole conversation here on campus. And I feel very honored to be here, and I'm going to be speaking tomorrow, but they are doing incredible things on this campus with promoting positive body image and helping young women to feel good about themselves and to develop a sense of self-worth, and just really awesome stuff that I wanted to make sure that we highlighted and of course shared that information with you as well. So hopefully you get to learn some, and if you have any questions for these two leaders here on campus, please feel free at any time throughout the show to ask us those questions. I'm going to be sitting here. I can pop over here. I can see your questions. I can bring them up onto the screen. So at any time, if you have something you want to share, please do. That's why this is a Facebook Live. It's a conversation. We want you to be a part of that. And if you just want to pop in and say hello, wave, tell us who you are, where you're signing in from, where you're watching from, that's always exciting too. We're super, super glad to have you, no matter what you have to offer. It's a question or it's just a hello. So, we've got a hello from Leslie. Hey there. So without any further ado, let's dive into our conversation and introduce our guests. So first of all, to my immediate left is Alex Netzel, like pretzel, yes. You said, and she is the Vice President of Member Development for Pan-Hellenic across campus at Texas Christian University. And then we also have Maddie Weinstock joining us, and Maddie is a body positive peer educator. So to begin, let's talk a little bit about what both of those things mean. So Alex, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about your role on campus.
So the Pan-Hellenic Executive Board oversees all of the 13 sororities that we have on TCU's campus, and my position specifically, I create all of the values-based programming events for the women of our community. So we talk about things like body image and sexual assault on college campuses, just all of the things that the conversations that our women want to have, and especially the issues that are pertinent in our community. And then I also do a lot of things around academic development. But for this event specifically, we had a really great event with Katie Wilcox, who is author of Healthy is the New Skinny, last spring. And our women loved her and were really receptive to her message. And at that point, we kind of realized that this is a conversation that our women want to have about body image and about eating disorders. And it's something that they kind of need help jumpstarting that conversation with. So that's kind of where I took this and reached out to you, and so we're super excited tomorrow.
Yeah, me too. Yes, I can't wait to meet everyone, and thank you so much for doing that and to being sensitive to that
right.
Really awesome. Yeah. So, and Maddie, tell us about what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a body positive peer educator. I actually work with the Wellness Promotion Office here at TCU. So they've had peer educators for a couple years, but this is our first year of having specifically body positive focused peer educators. Essentially what we do is we put on events throughout campus focused on increasing body positivity and fighting eating disorders, reducing eating disorders, raising awareness in whatever way we can. And then we also are going to be running the Body Project on our campus as well.
Yeah.
So we're really excited about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just kind of try to raise awareness. Again, like Alex said, out there, I think there's a lot of people on this campus who want to have these conversations. So just giving people the opportunity to have that conversation, educate them on what the issues are, and hopefully, help some people out.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit more about the Body Project and what you're doing with that.
Yes, so the Body Project is this amazing program. It's a couple of sessions, and essentially what we do is we have our body positive peer educators lead the group, and we bring in around 10 people or so, and we teach them about the appearance ideal and the social ideal of beauty and kind of break it down for them and kind of go through and tell them why they should, love themselves, give them practical tools to fight against their negative body image. It's a really wonderful program. So we're definitely excited to get that going here.
And so when does that start?
So we're starting that in this coming up semester. So hopefully starting in January.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. That's exciting.
It really is.
So Alex, talk to us a little bit about in your role in dealing with sorority women in particular. Why do you think, and it's hard because I think a lot of people outside of college campuses or maybe reflecting back on their college experience say, oh, well, sororities are part of the problem. Obviously, I know because of your leadership role that you probably don't believe that. Yeah. So can you talk to us a little bit about how sororities can actually provide a safe space for women, and how you've seen Panhellenic help women actually with these issues.
Yeah, and so I think what we always talk about within our executive group of 7 who are on the executive board is how the first thing that happens when you come into Greek life is you go through recruitment. And for a lot of women, that's the first time that you first compare yourself to other women and you're almost put into a competitive atmosphere. But we so often see as freshmen within the new member pledge classes, they're get together in smaller groups, and that kind of creates a safe space, and that because you get that competitive atmosphere during recruitment, but then all of a sudden you join a sisterhood, and and that's the one thing that every woman who comes through recruitment is looking for is a sisterhood and a family of women and a group of women who understand you and get you, and that is kind of where we see that safe space coming, where you have a group of women that you can talk to and that want to help you through these issues and these problems or just whatever's going on in your life, and especially the role of older women in chapters. I think the Big Little program is where I kind of found my safe space within my chapter, because my Big was the first, I feel female role model that I had outside of my mom. So that was really helpful for me as to have somebody who was older than me in my chapter who had gone through so many similar life experiences that I was going through, went through college too, and was there for me to talk to when I needed somebody. Yeah. And then on the Panhellenic side, I love being on Panhellenic because these are hard conversations to have. And I think women are scared because there's a stigma around saying this is something that I struggle with. Because no one wants to be the first person to take that step because it's scary, because you don't know if anyone else is going through the same thing as you. So being on Panhellenic, we are the women who get to start those conversations, and we get to provide that safe space for other people. And I think that's why I love my position the most, is because I hear all these different voices saying, this is what I want to talk about. And I can be the one that says, okay, let me give you a room for that. Yeah. And let me start this conversation with you. And that's what we saw with Katie, is that we gave these women a room and a space to talk about it, and they loved it. And all of a sudden we were having really the first time I saw our community talk about an issue as a whole. And that was really special. Yeah.
Yeah, it is wonderful to be able to have that platform, and I'm so glad that you're in that position to be able to do that. Maddie, can you tell us a little bit about why, what drew you into this conversation and this space? Why did you choose to be involved? And then kind of piggybacking on what Alex was just saying, have you found a similar response with, people on campus that you've worked with, that they've been oh, finally someone is talking about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I personally am really passionate about eating disorder awareness. I'm recovered myself, so automatically.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So automatically I just had a passion for it, and I knew that it was a problem. I was I know other people are struggling with this. So that's kind of what originally drew me to it. And I think I was seeing on my campus that it was an issue, and that I think, like Alex was saying, people might be afraid to talk about it or not know what their resources are, not know how to get help, where to get help. So I think that was definitely something that was missing, that I thought that we needed to kind of bring to the light the issue. And since we have started putting on more body positivity focused, eating disorder focused events, there has been a wonderful response. Even if we have just simple events where we're at a table talking about these issues and inviting people over to come, learn about it, people are so receptive to come and talk about it, and they say, wow, this is so exciting, I love what you're doing, and they really want to see these things happening. So it's great to have that positive response, because I think I knew in my heart of hearts that there were people struggling with it, and there were people that wanted it, but to have that validation of that is really great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say, I see we've got some new viewers and just want to say hello and welcome to you and give you an update on what we're doing here. We are live from Texas Christian University in Fort Worth. I'm sitting here with Maddie and Alex, and they're both student leaders on campus working to increase awareness of eating disorders and promote positive body image. And so we're having an awesome conversation with these ladies, and want to also ask you if, we've got Sarah signing in saying hello from Australia. Sarah joins Weekly Hope pretty often, and so it's great to see her back here. Hey, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. We've got another friend from Australia. We've got Jess from Australia watching. Hey, Jess, thanks for tuning in. And we have my friend Raymonda, who is probably watching from Switzerland, but she travels quite a bit, so she might be joining us from some other beautiful location. But hey, girl, it's great to see you. Okay, so want to talk a little bit about college campus specifics, right? Because I went to college twice. I started, then I took a 4-year break, and then I went back to school. And what the interesting thing that I noticed was obviously coming back, being a little bit older, I could observe more than just, be in the space. And what I found was so prevalent was just the stress and pressure that young people put on themselves. And I'm sure that I probably would have fallen prey to that a lot more had I, been the same age, but I've been out and worked and felt like, well, gosh, this is way easier than the real world, and so I didn't have that same perspective, and I just would be like, it's okay. It's going to be okay. Yeah. Like, I promise. But what is it about the university setting? Why is it that young people feel so much stress and pressure these days to perform? Is it the stress and pressure from their parents? Is it from teachers? Is it all of that combined with what social media and the media says about our bodies? Like, if you had to pick one specific motivating factor for why there's so much anxiety on campus for women, what would you say?
I mean, that is such a hard question. I always just think of college as just this perfect storm where all of these elements are coming together. It's the first time for a lot of people that you're being this independent. Right. You have harder classes. You have pressure from your parents, pressure from teachers, and then socially, like, you're in an entirely different place. You are nervous about making friends. I would say there's just, and then obviously, like you're saying, there's that element of social media and knowing what's expected of you. I just think that there's so many things happening at once, and that the accumulation of all those things can kind of lead someone to be really stressed out, predispose someone to deal with things by turning to food and body and stuff like that. And I also think one thing, if I had to pin it on one, which is, I think, so hard to do, it could be that comparison piece, because I think that there's a huge element of comparison amongst college individuals, especially college women, when you're with people all the time and you are, you're spending all your time with your friends now. You're seeing
that
what you're seeing.
there's no not a lot of adults to break that up, right?
Yeah. So, and then sometimes you have friend groups where it's like girls talking about like, oh, I went to the gym for this long, and then everyone's eating together, and it can just get really fishy with that. And then even classes, people compare grades and classes and stuff like that. So I think that can be a huge contributor to stress and anxiety.
Yeah, I think just like building off of that, I think the role of social media has just skyrocketed that comparison, because you see everyone like always posts like the highlight of their lives on social media. Yeah. So everyone looks like they have it all together. And I think that's where the pressure comes from, is feeling like you have to, even if you don't have it all together, make it look like you have it all together, whether it's with like friends or relationships or classes, or like, especially right now, for at least like being seniors, like getting a job or going to grad school. And I think that's like personally, that's where like I feel like the most pressure right now, because I'm a political science student. I want to go to law school. So, but I have all these other friends who already have jobs. And like they already know where they're going to be. And so that's an instant comparison where you feel that pressure, like I need to figure out what I'm doing. And so I think that's where that comes from, is you feel like you have to meet other people. You have this like standard. And in reality, everyone kind of feels that way.
Yes.
Everyone feels that way. I feel like
Yes.
I always feel that
Everyone
way.
does.
Yes,
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
Everyone's lost.
Even
Definitely.
40-year-olds, even 50-year-olds. Like, I promise, this is something that
is what
reoccurs in every
that is what
phase
I
of
realized
life.
in college.
Yes.
I was like, I think I realized this, like, and I talked to my parents about this at Christmas one year. I was like, I don't think people ever have it figured out.
No.
And that makes me feel a lot better.
Unless one of you out there watching has it figured out and would like to share the secret,
please.
we will be
But I think
happy.
That's where so much of the pressure comes from. And TCU specifically, Maggie, you probably agree, such a high-performing campus. We have so many incredible students who do so many incredible things, which is great because like it pushes you as students, it pushes you as people to like reach your potential and like put yourself out of your comfort zone. But on the other hand, it's just you feel like you have to do as much.
Right. Well, it's finding healthy balance, right? Because any kind of, competitive environment or, all competitive environments aren't bad, right? And it can be good, it can be motivating, it can be inspiring, but it's saying, okay, I'm going to put competition in its healthy place where it belongs, that it can help me to be better, it can help me to be improved, help me to self-reflect. But at the same time, I'm not going to put all of my stock and my sense of self-worth in how I perform, because there's so many other factors at play. And actually that kind of is a nice bridge to the conversation about, okay, what is underpinning all this? Because when you do experience stress and anxiety, like you talked about, there can be a gravitation toward a substance. I mean, we know alcohol abuse is rampant on college campuses, toward abusive relationships, or, getting into a relationship that maybe is not healthy for you, right? Eating disorders, something we're all very, very passionate about. Using that as a control mechanism or a coping mechanism to deal with all of this. But really underpinning it all is that search for self-worth.
Yeah.
And where does that come from? And I'd love for both of you to share, if you have, and I'll start with you, Maddie. You probably have seen some really cool stories of people that you've worked with, or maybe even your own story. And I don't want to put you on the spot. You don't have to share if you don't want to, but of kind of figuring out the emotional underpinning of the eating disorder and like, where am I getting my self-worth from?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely like, it's such an interesting journey to meet people who have recovered themselves and learn how they start to define themselves so differently after they've gone through the struggle, because I think it is so easy to look at social media, magazines, all that stuff, and see, okay, so thinness is worth, and my appearance, my body, that's what makes me worthwhile, or it makes people love me even. And then
love is a big
exactly
part of it.
Exactly. And then to kind of go through the process of recovery, or even if you don't have an eating disorder, to kind of go through that journey of self-understanding and self-worth and learn, wait, regardless of how I look, the people who love me because of who I am and what I am at my core. It has nothing to do with my body, nothing to do with my appearance. It's just because I am me, and I am inherently worthy just because I am me.
And I love that. No, it's so true. And when you realize, I think I first realized that when I had someone ask me about a friend that I had in high school, and oh, was she pretty or something like that? And I thought back, and I honestly could not answer that question objectively, because she was such a beautiful person to me. She was so kind and very selfless person, and always such a good friend, that my eyes had literally changed when I looked at her. To me, she was absolutely beautiful. But then I tried to put myself as a position of, okay, well, like an outsider looking in or not knowing this person. I'm like, I honestly can't tell you. To me, she is beautiful, and that I think we can have other people tell us that, or say that, but it's so hard. It can be so hard to believe for ourselves. How about you? What have you seen with the women on campus? As you said, as you have brought other speakers in to talk about this, how has the dialogue and the conversation started to open up with the women you work with?
I think like when we brought in Katie, a lot of the times that we talked about like the kind of intersection between the fraternity and sorority culture on our campus, and how so many of us have had experiences where someone would say like, oh, what chapter are you in? And so you'd say your chapter, and someone would be like, oh, you're too pretty to be a part of that chapter.
What?
And you're like, what does that?
That's not cool.
What does that say
That's
about?
Really not
what does
cool.
that say about me? What does that say about my chapter? And then all of a sudden you start like rank ordering yourself, and you start but when we started having this conversation, it was truly the first time within our community that I saw kind of like the chapter walls break down and those barriers between us go away. And we had conversations as women. And we had conversations cross chapter lines with women who weren't Greek, which is like sometimes very uncomfortable for us because we hide within our little like Greek chapters, and that's our safe space. And we love that that's our safe space. But then we feel like it's hard for us to like have conversations outside of that. And so we had conversations with non-Greek women, with women in other chapters. And that was so wonderful to see, because at one point Katie asked us, I want you to talk to people around you. When was the first time that you were critical of your body? What's like the first memory that you have? And that was so amazing to see. Like, those are hard conversations to have, especially to turn to someone that you don't know and say, this is the first time that I struggled with this, or the first time that I was self-critical. And that was amazing to see women who didn't know each other be like, this is hard for me. This is hard for you. Maybe we're not as different as we think we are, just because our letters are different. The letters that we wear are different. And so that's been really amazing to see, that this conversation that can be such a difficult conversation to have is bringing our community together so much, and bringing our campus together, and like doing so much, like not even just in Greek life, but campus wide.
Yeah. It's pulling down those walls. It's like, and it can be hard. I think one of the reasons it can be so hard to admit that, well, this was the first time I was critical of my body, as an example, is because you're admitting that you're weak. Yeah. And you are exposing yourself, which is always hard. Vulnerability is really hard. But as soon as you do it, you realize the person sitting across from you is like, oh my gosh, me too. Yeah. And you're like, well, why didn't we just say it to begin with? It's so good. Maddie, can you tell us a little bit about, in the work that you do as a peer educator, as a body positive peer educator, what are some of the most important principles that, a student can work toward to establish a positive body image?
Okay, some of the most important principles to establish positive body image.
Is it self-talk? Is it what you choose to eat? And I don't mean that in like a restrict kind of way, but obviously food is, we need it. It has a big impact on the way that our brain works and our body functions. Is it the group of friends that you hang out with? I mean, I know it's probably a little bit of all of those, but what have you seen work the most for people?
I think a thing that I've seen work a lot is just that self-talk piece, because we are the ones that we talk to most often. We're always in our own heads. One of my favorite things that we've had people do at events, and we're going to have people do in the Body Project, is just start to look at yourself in the mirror every morning and say things that you like about yourself. Because I think it's so often that we are that tape in our own heads playing, saying, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, this is what's wrong, that's what's wrong, this is what's wrong. And when we can get girls to look at themselves and say, I love this about myself, this is awesome, this is great, I think that just changes everything in the way you think about yourself. And I think that self-talk piece, in my mind, is like the most important, because when you start to practice self-love and appreciate every part about yourself, everything that you have to offer, and rather than focusing on the negative, it just changes everything about how you feel about your body.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I'm sure we've got some old people that went out, new people, and just want to give you an update. We're here at Texas Christian University. We're live with two amazing student leaders on campus, and we're talking right now about self-talk, about self-worth, and all those things. And just want to say, if you've got a story to share or something that has really worked for you in cultivating a healthy sense of self-worth, positive body image, please let us know and share it. And of course, if you're watching this video later, you can still comment and share, and we'll answer, give you two big thumbs up as well. People always come back and read the comments too, so even if you're watching this later and you share something, your story or your feedback or your insight might actually be really, really helpful for others as well. But now, how about for you, Alex? What have you found, let's say personally, like what have you found to be the best thing for helping establish like a positive sense of self?
I think for me personally, it's like the group of people that I surround myself with, because it's like we said before, it's like so hard to be vulnerable and like having these conversations. But the second that you find kind of like your group that you can be vulnerable with, like that is what has helped me the most, is because like when I can like talk through it and I can say, because I think a lot of like the issues that I've dealt with personally is like finding self-worth and like, am I doing enough? Like not only like do I feel good enough, but am I doing enough? Like with school, with classes, with what I want to do with my life, and then all that translates back into like is how I look good enough? And so being able to have women in my life that I can talk to and say, this is what I'm struggling with. And sometimes I don't know where that comes from, and I don't know why. And being able to talk about it out loud, because when it's in your head, all it does is just like cultivate.
Just roll around. It keeps rolling around in there.
And you literally make like a molehill into a mountain. And it just becomes this huge thing that controls your life. And so for me to be able to have women that I can talk to, and we can kind of like, girl talk, like self-love each other, that is what helps me a lot. And then I think also like the self-talk is I have to like sometimes like make myself stop, because I go so fast with school and everything, make myself stop and say, okay, like why am I thinking this way? And for me also, I think I put a lot of my self-worth, like I said, into like my drive, my ambition to do all these things. And it took me a long time, especially into college, to realize that just because I accomplished X, Y, and Z doesn't automatically mean that I'm going to love myself more. And so it's loving myself because I have the ambition and drive, not because I can check off the box saying that I did those things. And the hardest part is that it's just something that I had to learn through time. And I had to like kind of really like come into myself. And I think this position, like in pushing myself, like made me realize that a lot.
And I think that's such a good lesson that both of you completely embody, is that this is something that takes practice. This is something that takes work. It takes consciousness, intentionality. It's not something that necessarily just comes easily. And for some people it might. And you know what? God bless them. That's awesome. Did not for me. And it still can be a struggle for me. I work on this all the time too, you know? So, and even though I have my own recovery journey, and I'll talk all about that tomorrow, but it's just something that, and also seasons of life bring about different challenges, right? So college experience is one season of life with challenges. And then, 10, 15, 20 years later, whether it's marriage or children or a brand new job or a promotion or, or a big tragedy, someone in your life that you love passed away. I mean, life is crazy. So each thing is going to bring new seasons, and it constantly takes practice.
I like to think of it, one of my favorite analogies is like your mind is like a garden. And so there are seasons where it's so much harder to take care of that garden, and it's
there's
winter
and
there's a drought or something like that, but you still need to put in that effort, and sometimes putting even more effort into self-love, positive self-talk, so that you can, keep cultivating your garden and making your mind a beautiful place to be.
Yeah, that's so great. So we have had a really, really fabulous conversation, and I'm seeing where it's been a long time. I thank you guys so much for hanging in here. But I do want to ask these ladies one last question, and that is, so for someone who is struggling in the recovery process, or they're in therapy, whatever place they are on the journey, what advice or what insight, what encouragement would you give to people who are trying to support that person, right? Because obviously, hopefully that person is seeing a therapist, getting treatment, but it can be very, very hard to support someone who is going through that process. So I'd love to just ask each of you, what are some things that you think, or what encouragement would you give to someone supporting a loved one going through this?
So the first thing I want to say is that it is really hard. If you are supporting someone who is struggling, it is hard, because eating disorders are just, they just don't make sense. They just don't make logical sense, but they are such a real experience for the person who is struggling. I think the advice that I would probably give is just make sure that you take care of yourself too. Because I think it's so often that when you're helping someone else, you just only worry about them, but you need to make sure, like, you're doing a really hard thing if you're helping someone who's struggling. So make sure that you invest in your own self-care. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And also, just if you're in terms of like helping the person that you're trying to help, just give them all the love that you can. I think a lot of the time, like we were talking about earlier, eating disorders stem from that like belief of like, people don't love me, people won't love me if X, Y, and Z. So just love the person that you're trying to help with your whole heart, and never ever think that you aren't doing enough, because it's so hard to help someone who's struggling. So don't put it all on yourself.
They have to do the work. But at the same time, that recognition that they are going to be the person in recovery is going to be so afraid of disappointing or
Right.
failing the people around them. So that unconditional love and that, like, even if you slip up, even if you mess up,
Yeah.
even if you have a bad day in recovery, like, I still love you
Yeah.
Yes.
because I love you despite your performance.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think what I was gonna say was essentially like the same thing, and it's like a 1 step forward, 3 steps back type of journey for a lot of people. And so I think like just pouring so much love into people, because like, and also realizing, you know, like as long as you love them, like that's all they need. And like, because it's like you said, like don't put it so much of it like on yourself, because like it's not your journey, it's theirs. Like even though you're walking that journey with them, like it is still their individual journey, like however long it takes and whatever it looks like. It's just like being there for somebody and kind of just being that kind of like unspoken, like whatever you need, whenever you need me, like I'll be there, like for like the really good days and the really bad days. And so I think that would be like my best advice.
Awesome. That's really good advice. If only we could all do it. And
Yeah.
I think obviously it applies to it's harder when you have someone who's dealing with a mental health issue.
Right.
But of course we know, as we've seen, I have experienced it personally in my life. Maddie, you have, I know probably Alex, you have in other ways, but when you have the right team
Right.
around you, it can save your life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It really can save your life. And so it's just a matter of being intentional about the choices of who we surround ourselves with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
So cool. Well, this has been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you guys, and thank all of you for watching, and thank you from all around the world. Denise says hello again, and Denise always tunes in as well. So hi, Denise, thank you for being here, and thank you guys. I know it's been a Sunday. I hope wherever you are in the world, whatever you are doing, that this was hopeful for you, and it was a positive message, and that you took something from it. I know I certainly did, and I know it makes me feel a lot better when I think about what a troubled world that we live in. To know that there are young women on campus who get it and are so encouraging to their peers and are really, really motivated to have these difficult conversations. It makes me very, very happy and excited. So thank you both, Maddie and Alex, for joining us. I just wanted to give a shout out to TCU, Texas Christian University here in Fort Worth. Thank them so much for having me. And also just say it's a really, really great school and a beautiful campus. And full of really, really pretty, impressive people. But even if they weren't impressive, it wouldn't mean that they weren't awesome. So anyway, okay, hope you all had a wonderful day. This video is going to stay up on our Facebook page at Eating Disorder Hope, and in a few days will also be on our YouTube channel. If you want to come back, watch, leave a comment, or of course, share with any of your friends and family if you think that this might be something that they would like to hear. So. And I'm going to be back Tuesday and Wednesday this week for more episodes of Weekly Hope. We've got additional interviews, and Elsa will. Oh no, Elsa won't be back. Elsa is, like I mentioned at the beginning, my unofficial co-host for the show, and but she had to stay in Europe for these next 2 weeks, so Elsa will not be there. So I hope you'll show up, and it'll just be me, me and our guests. So all right, thank you, ladies, so much. It was great, and I'll be posting too about the event tomorrow night, pictures and everything on our social media pages. So all right, hugs and kisses wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you this week. All right, ciao.